Tonight we will have two lectures, one for Dr. Ramez Mohsen. You are welcome, Dr. Ramez. The other one with me after Dr. Ramez. And we are thanking CYC Group for recording this. تفضل يا دكتور رامز.
I'm very happy to meet you today. My topic will be about communication skills. One of the things that were on the top of my head when I was coming today is some of you, maybe most of you and all of you are religious people, you are servants. So you might think, what is the benefit of a communication skills lecture? We know God, we have the Holy Spirit in our bodies, and we got fired up by the Holy Spirit, so God used St. Peter, He's going to use us, so we don't need the communication skills. St. Peter was a fisherman. So what's the problem? If God used the fisherman, then we are ready for God to use us and no need for the communication skills that you're going to bother us with. So I'm trying to build the case here. I'm speaking of someone who was, during his childhood, was rated by his school teachers as being dyslexic. You know what is dyslexic? In Arabic it's bati' al-ta'allum, or having difficulty in reading. This person comes from a strong family, yet his intelligence, his IQ was average. Yet this person succeeded to be the President of the United States, and probably because they tried the clip in front of you now, then you know who it is. It's supposed to be a surprise, but now you know who it is. So it is President Bush. Actually, you might have some criticism for this guy, but believe it or not, this guy was elected twice by the American people, not once but twice. So he must have something. Okay, you can criticize him as long as you want, but he had something that convinced the audience to elect him twice. And this thing is called communication skills. So if somebody who had an IQ that's average, and who was somebody who was not strong in his, political opinions, had to be the President of the United States twice because of communication skills, then communication skills matter. They are things that should be taught to people. I was not intending to show you the speech of the President, but let me show you something, just one thing, and then I'll ask you about it during my lecture.
This is an extraordinary period for America's economy. Over the past few weeks, many Americans have felt anxiety about their finances and their future. I understand their worry and their frustration. We've seen triple-digit swings in the stock market.
That's it, I don't need more. Well, it's not easy to address people. It's not easy. It's not easy to give a lecture. It's not easy to sit in front of the camera. That's not easy. But if this guy had to learn this and he was successful, then there is hope for everybody here. Communication skills, as one of the most important people in communication skills said before, it is no coincidence that some of the most successful people on the planet just happen to be excellent communicators. Take, for example, the prophets. All the prophets, either in the Old Testament or the New Testament, the disciples, they were excellent communicators. Take, for example, the leaders, the business leaders, the political leaders. All of them share one common thing. They were all excellent communicators. If I need to make this more clear, I would like to define what is communication. I'll give you some theoretical definitions. Just pass by these definitions because I want to get something out of this. One of the most important theoretical definitions of communication, the meaning of your communication is the response that you get. If you communicate with someone and you don't get any response, then your communication is meaningless. So we measure communication by response. If you find the response, then you have done a communication. If you don't find the response, then this is an illusion. You didn't communicate with anybody. The basics of communication are 5. The sender, I am the sender here. The receiver, you are the receivers. The message, which is the thing that I'm telling you. the tools, which are these tools. This is a tool, this is a tool, this is a tool. And the medium, I mean by the medium the atmosphere. I'm giving you this in a church. And that's why I tailored my communication skills lecture, because I know that you are servants. And I know that we are an evangelism course. If I was giving this to people in the pharmaceutical industry, I would speak in some medical terminology. If I was to give this in a political national party gathering, then I would speak in a political language. So this is what I mean by the medium. The types of communication that I'm going to tackle are the one-to-one communication and the group communication. We're not in the business of mass communication now, because I'm not speaking to people who are working in the field of mass comm. Carl Jung said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. So we ought to know that if you communicate with someone, the receiver is transformed, but you as a sender, you are transformed. We'll come to that with more details. I'll go to the messaging on one-to-one basis. When you communicate with someone on one-to-one basis, we have many examples, and I know that you have done homeworks about that, with Lord Jesus communicating with the Samaritan woman or with Nicodemus or whatever, and you know what it is to communicate with someone on one-to-one basis. Let me take it from the point of view of the sender, you. The first important thing when you communicate with someone is that you have to practice and prepare. Don't ever communicate with anybody without preparation. Even if you are fired up by the Holy Spirit, even if you have studied the Bible, even if you have attended the full course and got a certificate, please don't do that without practice and preparation. I've never seen an excellent communicator who didn't prepare, who didn't practice. We might advise you to practice in front of the mirror, or in front of your children, or in front of your wife, or even in front of your mother-in-law, which is very effective, because you ought to have some criticism, and then you can find somebody who usually criticizes you. I had one of my managers used to criticize me every time I give a lecture in front of Asr al-Aini students, which was something related to my job, and every time he used to criticize me. And I told him once, why don't you sometimes support me? Why don't you encourage me? You always criticize me. And then he said, but this is my job. I'm not paid to encourage you. You encourage yourself. I don't agree with that, but I took the benefit, because after 10 or 15 presentations and preparations, I became better. So I do thank him, although I needed him to encourage me. So you have to practice and prepare. The second thing is that you have to know your audience. And this point exactly I'm going to tackle in details. You have to know something about the language. You are here for an evangelism course. You all know English, I suppose, but you don't know Chinese, you don't know Indian. You're not required to study Chinese language and become expert in Chinese language, but just know the few words that are key words in the language. You know that all the foreigners that come to Egypt, they know ahlan wa sahlan, law samahtum, salamu alaikum, and they tell it like that, so they know the words that could get them on a taxi. So you don't need to know the whole language. You need to know the words that you are going to tell to the taxi driver, or to the pizza man, or to the concierge, or whatever. Few words. There are many books that are usually sold in airports. You can find them in airports that will give you the few words or the key words that you need in the country you are going to serve in. So language is not only language. Language is spoken language, language is body language, language is written language. So you have many forms of language. I would caution you to know as well some accents. You know, the French spoken in France is not the same as in Belgium. There is a different accent. And the German in Switzerland is not the same as in Germany. And the Arabic in Egypt is not the same in Algeria. So there are accents, there are dialects. So that you have been to Sudan, and you definitely know that it's not the same Arabic. So you have to know something about the accents. You don't know to speak in accent, this is not required, but to know, at least when you listen to a Moroccan, you know this is Moroccan. This is Moroccan Arabic. And to a Lebanese, you know this is Lebanese. And when you say water, maya, you don't say it maya, you say it lo maya in Saidi. So it's sometimes a word that makes you familiar with the person. Knowing your audience is very important from all aspects. because people usually familiarize and accept people who do resemble them. So it's not only speaking their language, you might wear clothes that do resemble them. So if you go to Upper Egypt, you serve in a village, and you're having an iPhone, and you are preaching about the love of God, and Jesus loved the poor, and you have to be very simple in your life, and here your iPhone rings, and you get your iPhone with $100 worth, and hello mama, I am in a service, and I'm coming to you back. And then the guys, they look at your iPhone, and they don't listen to what you're saying. So you have to know the people, so to respect them, even in what you are, what are your clothes. The second thing you know to know is the history. You have to know that history is the most important factor that affects people in a civilization. So you have to know something about the history of the Chinese people or the South African people. If you go to South Africa and you don't know that this country has suffered from apartheid for a long time, this is a problem, because you would act in a naive way and you won't be successful. You have to know that there are some historical conflicts between Japanese people and the Chinese and the Koreans. So you don't go to the Koreans and you tell them, I thought you were Japanese. Okay, they look like each other, but you're committing a fatal mistake, because Koreans don't like Japanese at all. They have been occupied by the Japan for a very long time. World War II, there were many atrocities. The Americans have thrown 2 atomic bombs on Japan, and still Japanese do accept Americans. They don't have a problem with that, but they do have a problem with their neighbors. So imagine what kind of hatred is there. It's the same thing as between Arabs and Israelis. If you're from Alaska, probably you don't know that Egyptians have bad relationships with Israelis. You know that they have bad relationships with the Palestinians, but why? What's the problem between Egyptians and Israelis? You don't know, because you're from Alaska. That's the point. Don't go to China and behave like you're from Alaska. You have to know the history of the people. You have to know some historical aspects of that civilization. Civilization, which means the Far Eastern civilization is very peculiar. The Indian civilization, the Western civilization. You go to France and you speak to them, the Virgin Mary appeared to me. Well, they don't accept that. They don't accept that. But if you go with reason, the Western civilization is based on reasoning. It's based on hundreds of philosophers that have taught, have changed the Western culture for hundreds of years. So you might know something about Kant, about Hegel, about Aristotle, which is very important, because people are taught that in the schools. And then you come and tell them, the Virgin Mary appeared to me. But you don't begin with that. Okay? So you have to know the Western civilization, the Eastern civilization. The interests, what are they interested in? You go to Africa and you know that people like to dance. And you tell them, I don't accept that you dance. And then they tell you, we're not dancing, we are communicating. Because when they are using the tum-tums, for example, or the drums, this is not singing and dancing. In the early centuries, when Africa was secluded from all the civilization, people used to communicate through drums, because villages were far apart from each other, and then a certain drum means we are in war, another one means help, another one means we're hungry, come and help us. So this is not, it's a part of the civilization, it's a part of their culture. So right now, when you go to Africa, to Kenya for example, you'll find that even in the Coptic Orthodox Church, where we don't use in Egypt drums, or we don't use tam-tams or these things, they allow them to do that. It's a part of the civilization. When you go to South America, for example, you have to know that the Brazilian people, they like to move. They like to move. They are not classical people, they're not traditional. And there is a difference between Brazilians and Argentinians. One thing is, the Coptic Church was very successful in Bolivia, for example, but not as successful yet, let's say yet, in Argentina. Because Argentina is it's much of a Western society, more modern society, where people act like Europeans a little bit. This is not the case in Brazil. You find many villages, you find many favelas, which are cities for the poor people. And when you go to Rio de Janeiro, for example, you have to know that. You're not going to play football on the sand. You're going to communicate with people who are very poor, living in favelas, which is like Bidonville, it's Medina Barami. So they live there. So you have to know that. Add to that the needs. You have to know the needs of the people. And this is, I wrote it in capital letters, if you see. You have to know what is their need. Well, Jesus Christ knew what was the real need of the Samaritan woman. You have to know what is the real need of the people in Africa. They are hungry. Come on, don't come and tell them I'm talking about God. And they are hungry. And they are looking at what you have ate and what you have in your bag, for example. They think that you do have food in your bag, while you do have papers, for example. But they think you do have food. So you have to satisfy some of their needs. You go to and help homeless people in New York. But homeless people, they want to eat first. Okay, and this is what St. Paul, I think, said in one of his letters, that you have to do this. So, needs are very important to know, but you have to know something about the needs behind the needs. And this is very important for a communicator. I might tell you, I am a sad person. This does not mean that I want to be cheered up. This means that I want you to take care of me, to phone me once daily. But I don't want to tell you, actually I'm lonely. This is very embarrassing for me. So try as much as possible to uncover the real needs of people when communicating with them. Don't deal superficially with them. So if somebody has a need, try to check as much as possible if this is the real need and not something that he is covering up. The Samaritan woman wanted water. Well, this is not the problem. The problem is she used to go to the well because she was embarrassed of somebody seeing her. So you have to know that the real need of people. The real need of people in the Western societies, and sometimes, is to have somebody to talk with, because everybody is living in a silo. Nobody contacts. They don't have neighbors. They don't have the culture of contacting neighbors. The culture of having friends from the same building, for example. So you have to know that. I'll jump to another thing, which is believe in your message. Believe. This is very important. As a sender, you have to believe in what you're saying. You might attend the course, but you don't believe in what has been said. You might do the homework, but you still don't believe. I'll come to what do I mean by believe. First, understand what you're saying. Understand it fully. If you don't understand it, you're not going to be successful in transmitting it. Then be inspired, please. Don't act like if you're reciting something. I might come to you and tell you, I'm reciting something. And you write in your booklet, and that's it. No, be inspired. Be fired up. Well, you know that St. Peter, when he was speaking to people and 3,000 people they have believed, he must have been inspired. Not only understood, maybe he didn't understand fully, I think so, because nobody can understand everything about God, but he was inspired, which is very important. Fired up, you know, somebody who has a motive, who believes in the message and wants to transmit it. This is very important. Many of the people that you see on television are inspiring people, which mean people who believe what they are saying or act as if they believe what they are saying. That's why when you see an advert about Coca-Cola, well, actually, when I tell you, would you want to drink Coca-Cola or Pepsi, you say whatever. Most of the people say whatever. We don't have a preference. Yet both companies do compete with each other to tell you that there is a difference. What is the difference? Both are soft beverages. There is no difference between them. Yes, you know them. You know that. But they get you one famous movie star. You like the movie star is drinking the Coke, then you buy the Coke. How many times have you bought something that you didn't need just because you were inspired by the person who's communicating with you? You go to Omar Effendi, for example, you want to buy a machine, and then you buy something else, a booklet or whatever. So, because the people who are buying or the people who are selling, the sellers are very proud, they are very convincing, and then you buy. You know the Chinese people who knock on your door to give you those Chinese things? Some of them are very polite, some of them are very insisting, and you end up by buying them. So, it's becoming inspired that's important. I'm telling you that one of the most well-known people, even in textbooks of communication, who are very clever in this thing, are Jehovah's Witnesses people, who go from door to door and knock and inspire people. Most of the times, 99% of the times, people do chase them. They don't like them, either because they are Christians and they don't believe in what Jehovah's Witnesses people are telling them, or either because they don't have time, they're not religious. But from 100 homes they do knock, one is ready to listen, because somebody is lonely, somebody is sick, somebody is prepared at that time to listen, and they do catch fish. So if we don't like what do they teach, well, believe me, they find fish, just because they are inspired and they are motivated. The most important thing is to grow. If you don't grow in the kind of message that you are sending, people won't be able to listen. They won't be interested because you don't grow. Maybe they will outgrow you. So if I'm speaking of communication skills and I don't treat and don't practice, maybe you come after the end of the course and tell me we don't want to listen to you again because we have outgrown you. So what you're telling us is something that's nonsense. So we have to grow in the kind of message that this applies to religion and to everything. I'm not speaking here of religion only. The kind of message in itself, keep it short and simple. As your message is short and simple, as it is effective. As you are going in lectures and you are buzzing the words of people for hours, this is not effective. And if you take the Sermon on the Mountain in Matthew 5, I think that you can read it, the 3 chapters in just 15 minutes or something like that. And if you go to the conversations of Lord Jesus with the Samaritan or whoever, you find it takes only 2 or 3 minutes reading it. So you keep your message short and simple, that's it. It's not the length of the message, it's the inspiration in the message. It's the kind of the spirit that's spilled in the message. How long is the best advert you have seen on television? For Coke, for Michelin, for whatever. Seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute. You cannot see an advert in the television of more than 1 minute. Only the Egyptian government does that. More than that, no. So you cannot tolerate a message of more than 30 seconds. I work in the pharmaceutical industry. We teach medical representatives to give their message to doctors, and Father Dawood was a doctor and he knows that, in just 1 minute, 2 minutes maximum. Because if they do drag on, I mean there are patients in the clinic and they cannot tolerate that. So your message should be short and simple. Address the real needs. I've forgotten to say something. Sometimes you don't give a message, you give a story, and this is very important. Most of the adverts you see are stories. They are not Coke is good, drink it. They are not these are the best things in Honda, you have to buy and you have to drive a Honda. No, they relate a story to you. What did Jesus do? He told stories, basically most of the time. And then for his disciples he told things that are not always stories, but to average people it was stories. What did Socrates do? Socrates was a famous Greek philosopher, 5 centuries before Jesus, or 4, I don't remember. And Socrates used to go to the market and fake that he's stupid and ask stupid questions. He's the great philosopher Socrates, but he's asking stupid questions. And then people are very happy that they are more clever than Socrates. And then, bit by bit, he's becoming more intelligent and he's driving the conversation to an end whereby the receiver admits that he's stupid. The receiver, not Socrates. Okay, you're more intelligent than me. What happens at the end? 500 people from the Senate agreed to kill Socrates because he told them they are stupid. And they have uncovered that. And he was killed. Oh, he did kill himself because he drank the poison. They didn't want them to give them the poison, he drank it himself. So this how Socrates didn't write any book. His teachings are not written. His disciple, which is Plato, he wrote the teachings of Socrates as dialogues. I'll come to that. Address the real needs in your message. As I said, not the fake needs, not the superficial needs, the real needs. Go deep. The third thing, balance your message. I'll give you an example. You want to tell them that God is here. You can tell them that God is love, and you can tell them that God is going to punish you. Well, you have to balance your message. You're telling them about the Coptic Orthodox Church. You have to balance that. The Coptic Orthodox Church is not going to punish you and is not as easy as other churches where you can do whatever you want and then they will accept you. You have to balance your message. You know what I mean. So a balanced message is very important for you in communication. As you can see, in most of the adverts you see on TV, they don't give you an exaggerated message. They don't tell you this is the best car in the world. They never say that. If you see the adverts of Mobini, for example, they tell you this is the most widespread communication network in Egypt, because this is a fact and they can prove it. So don't say something that you cannot prove it, that's out of your head, because you are fired up and inspired. You want to tell that you are the best church in the world. Be rational, balance your message. Repetition is very important. Don't think that a message said once is going to be remembered. If you go in the street in front of the church, you might see 10 adverts, for example, let's say a soft beverage. You see that the 10 adverts are placed one after the others. And then you say, those people are not clever. They should spread the ads all over Heliopolis so that everybody sees them. Well, the surprise is, this is intended. They intend to put 10 adverts one after the other. Why? Because if you see a repeated message, you remember the message. That's why they repeat adverts on the TV or in the radio. And you have to repeat your message. Avoid despair. Well, when you read the Bible, sometimes you feel that, I read this verse before. Why is Jesus repeating it? Because it should be repeated. Why is he calling the name twice? Because it should be called twice. This alerts the people. This alarms them. So this is the basics of communication. You have to repeat. The receiver, I speak from the point of view of that. You have to construct an effective dialogue. There should be an effective dialogue, not a monologue. I'm giving you a lecture. Sadly enough, this is a monologue. It should be a dialogue. I was planning to do that, but actually I'm sitting. I wanted to stand up and I wanted to conduct a dialogue with you. Okay, I can do that even if I'm sitting. But the best way is to mingle with people. The best way is to conduct a dialogue, not to recite verses. This is the Pharisaians' way. I'm speaking from the Christian way. There should be a dialogue. Even your homework was about dialogues with two people. So you have to conduct a dialogue. How is that? This is very difficult. This is even the most difficult part in communication. How to invent an icebreaker or an opening, and how to conduct an effective dialogue, and how to drive a dialogue. Most of you are Sunday school teachers, and you know that we always believe in our meetings of servants, dialogue is very effective. We want dialogues, and then we end up by giving monologues. This is the easiest way. Dialogues are very difficult. They need practice. They need humility. They need people who understand the people in front of them. So opening is very important in any dialogue. You have to catch something, an icebreaker, something that's related to the person in front of you. Hello is not an opening. How are you is not an opening. When you find a beggar in the street, have you been faced by a beggar who tells you, Mister, actually I'm not begging from you. I only have 25 piasters in my pocket because I lost all my money and I need to go home. Have you ever those who have seen people like that, please raise your hand. Okay, the others don't walk in the street. So you are a fancy car, you don't walk in the street. So how is this person approaching you? Maybe he comes and say lillah, lillah, then you go away. But you see somebody with a suit who looks respectable, and then you are willing to listen, and then there is an icebreaker, and he says, actually I'm not a beggar, so okay, and then you give him your ears. Okay, you go away afterwards, no problem with that, I know. But at the end, there is an icebreaker. So try to catch an icebreaker when speaking and communicating to someone. I need to drink from this well. You woman, give me something to drink. This is Jesus opening the dialogue with the woman, with the Samaritan woman. So you need to find an icebreaker. I need to drink, for example. This is a very easy way. I need to eat. This is even much profitable. So you have to find an opening. The second, it might be asking the person about his health or the health of someone who's beloved to him. It might be asking about the weather. It is an opener. Like, for example, St. Paul, when he went to Athens, he found a very good opening. The unknown God. What is this? The unknown God. I'm going to use it as an opener, as an icebreaker, because everybody wants to know who is the unknown God. You know that in the book of Acts. The second thing is open-ended questions. You can never conduct a dialogue with open-ended questions. Let me ask Rami. Yeah, questions here. Let me ask you a question. Are you happy with this course? Okay, sure, which means yes. Okay, do you come here on each Sunday? Okay, do you think that this course is effective? Okay, I've asked him 3 questions that took around 10 seconds, and the answers are yes, because they are close-ended questions. Let me ask Rami once more. Rami, what do you think about this course?
Very beneficial, and it make a difference
Okay, it is the same 10 seconds, but he said, okay, you don't hear them, I know, but you can expect that he's saying something. I gave him room to speak. So if you asked open-ended, what are open-ended questions? What, how, when, why, and where. They are called W questions. What, how, when, why, and where. The best of them is how or why. What is a little bit intrusive. What are you doing here? This is a little bit intrusive. When is usually answered by a short sentence. When? Tomorrow. That's easy. So it looks like a closed-ended question. But why? How? And even some whats, when they are phrased in what do you think? When they are phrased in a good manner. So open-ended questions should be very good for you to open a dialogue with someone. And not only one open-ended question, please. 2 or 3 open-ended questions. And through the open-ended questions, the person in front of you is like a seashell that's opening for you, and then you find the pearl inside of it. So open-ended questions are very useful if you are a housewife and you have a servant. What do you think about that? And she tells you her idea. It's very important if you are a doctor and asking a patient. What? Okay, closed-ended questions are somehow needed when you have guessed what's happening in front of you and you want to make sure. So you ask closed-ended question. So the doctor, when the patient enters, what do you complain from? And then the patient says his complaint. At the end, the doctor wants to make sure that this is a kind of, let's say, gastritis, pain in the stomach. So do you feel heartburning? You feel something here? Yes or no? So now you want to make sure. So open-ended question, and you end by closed-ended question. And then a closing. When you are sending a message, a closing is a kind of a commitment. We are the Coptic Orthodox Church. As you have understood what is our faith, I want to make sure that you have to know our creed, and I want to make sure that you are coming next Saturday at 6 p.m. in the church or whatever. So, are you going to come? Do you want any help from me? Do you need to ask anything else? What am I doing here? I'm taking commitment. I'm closing the call. I've spread the message and I'm putting my stamp. That's it. So, at any call, you have the head, which is the opening. The body, which is the call itself or the message itself. And then the feet, which is the closing. You take commitment. And then don't forget that you have to do a follow-up or a repetition. We have said that a message that's not repeated is not effective. So you have to do a follow-up. You have to repeat what you are saying. A follow-up means that you come again and repeat the message. You come a third time and repeat the message. How many times have you heard the message about a kind of LCD to buy it? Maybe 100 times. Just to buy an LCD, for example, or to buy whatever, a bedroom. So please, follow-up is very important in communication. The tools. Body language is the most important tool. Your most important tool in communication is your body. So if I'm doing that to you, then I am somebody who's enthusiastic, I want to be close to you. If I'm doing that, then I'm somebody who's with authority, and you've seen Colonel Gaddafi. I'm having like that. So it's like somebody who's teaching, somebody who's a leader. So body language is very important. So please don't ever forget that the body language you're transmitting is sometimes more effective than the message. So if I'm doing that, and then you look at me, I'm boring. Even if I'm telling you something that's very interesting, but I'm boring because I'm doing that. If you keep looking at your clock, then I want this thing to end up. So please, body language is very important. Contact sometimes is important. Physical contact, I mean. When you tap at someone's shoulder, when you come closer to someone. This is sometimes needed. Except with one exception that I will come to later. The most important tool is your soul, what you have inside. This is the most important tool. People see your soul when you are talking. It's like as if this part of your body becomes transparent, and they see your heart. So your soul is one of the most important tools. We come to technology. Technology comes from either wooden stick, a wood stick, that used to be used by the old philosophers and leaders in the ancient time, to the internet. You have to master the technology. The medium, as I said, you have to reach for the receiver. Socrates used to go to the market. He's a philosopher. He can stay in the and sit in the school and people come to him. No, he used to go to the market. That's why he was an effective communicator. Basically, this is what happened with Jesus Christ and what happened with St. Paul. They used to go to people and not people to come to them. The second thing is your performance is your potential minus interference. You have to remove interferences. The common communication interferences are stress. Please don't talk to somebody who's stressed with the message of the Lord, because people need to listen something else. Maybe if you tailor the message so that you address that stress, that's good. But don't come and tell to somebody who's stressed, I want to tell you a story. Just try to see why is this person stressed. The environment, the noise. You go to a market, for example, in Kenya, and you want to preach and everybody's talking with everybody. No. You get them on the outbounds of the market in an empty place and you preach. You don't do that in front of the people buying, because they are going to hit you and they want to buy. So try to avoid noise. Ego. It's very difficult to deal with people who suffer from egoism. You have to put that aside. So you have to win them first, because egoism is a great interference against communication. So you win their hearts and minds, and then they will put their egoism just a little bit like that. I'm just stating few examples. I'm not going to go through them because there are too many. But all of this list is a kind of interferences that inhibit communication. Attitude, fear, for example. Don't come to somebody who's very fearful, in a state of fear. A woman that's beaten by her husband on daily basis, and you want her to give you her ears and listen to your stories. Please, she's in a state of fear. Try to calm her down. Maybe she needs psychological treatment. So, performance is your potential, what I've said, minus interference. You have to remove interference. As interferences become bigger, people won't listen to you. Too much interference is not effective. You have to remove them. Okay, let's jump to something else. Key pitfalls of communication, the key problems, the key mistakes that you should avoid. Lack of knowledge. You come, I'm going to act. I am Irina Popovska from Moldova. The first question is, what is Moldova? What is Moldova? I don't know what is Moldova. Okay, so I'm going to distribute those 3 papers. Okay, Besim, and then the 2 ladies next to you. Take this one. You take this one for the lady next to you, because they are in order, and for the 3rd lady. Okay. Don't read them, please. If you don't know what is Moldova, how do you expect to communicate with someone who's from Moldova? Very easy, huh? Okay. Bassem, please read loudly what you have in your hands.
Moldova is a country in Europe between Romania and Ukraine.
Okay, sit down. Okay, this is very effective. Moldova is a European country between Romania and Ukraine. Okay, so it's a European country at least. It's not an Asian country, it's not an African country. It's a little bit in Western or Eastern Europe. I'm going to test your geography. Thank God. It's in Eastern Europe. Then your course is effective. So, this is something that might infer some ideas in your mind. Eastern European, maybe former communist, maybe they are suffering from communist idea, atheists. Okay, what I'm doing is kind of inferences and prejudice and guessing, prejudice. Okay, you can read the paper with you in high voice, loud voice. Okay, it's the same idea, but I've added that it is a country in Europe with 98% of the population that's Orthodox. So you now know that there is an Orthodox church there, which makes your life easier if you're going to go there, or maybe not easier, I don't know. Then you know something that this is an Orthodox. If you are telling them, somebody from Moldova, I am Orthodox, Okay, there are differences between the East and whatever, but at least it's the same wording, Orthodox. So they do accept you. It's an icebreaker, yeah, it's an icebreaker. You know something more. Please add something.
Moldova is a country in Europe between Romania and Albania with a 2.5 million population. 98% of population is Orthodox. It is the poorest country in Europe.
She added only one small sentence. Moldova is the poorest country in Europe. Then you know that this is not like Poland, for example, or the Czech Republic. This is the lowest. So you know that this person might suffer from some economical problems. They are poor. You know that the health is not good. The average age is lower. You know that there are problems of diseases. So not because this is a European country, it jumps in your head and you say it's a European country, so they are good. No, they're not. They are the poorest country in Europe. And this means that you should never jump to conclusions. Please, when you are communicating with someone, don't ever jump to conclusions. I will add much more information. Actually, if you want to know something about a country, you go to the CIA fact book, www.cia.gov. You will find everything you need about any country. You probably know that. Or done that for your homeworks. I hear about that. What is the problem with Moldova? Moldova is one of the well-known countries for, it's a transit country for women and girls trafficked for the purpose of commercial sexual exploitation. Moldovan women are trafficked to the Middle East, Eastern Europe and Western Europe. So Moldova is the biggest exporter of prostitutes in Europe. And this country suffers from a great moral decline. So when you know that this is an added info, you might be motivated to serve God there. It's a 4 million people country, so you have 2 million women. So you have around 1 million women below the age of 30, for example, or whatever. Then you can do a difference. And then when you contact somebody who's from Moldova, you know that there is a problem in that country. And it might need a solution. So, lack of knowledge is a key pitfall. If you think that Moldova is a European country, and you go there, and you're faced with serious problems, and you're not ready for that, it's your own problem, because you didn't have full knowledge about it. I know that in your course, you do avoid that. But I'm just giving you an example because I didn't know that you are avoiding that. So I just assumed, which is not right. So, anyway, this is a lack of knowledge. Another example, the cultural mishaps. In Egypt we do this, which means patient, wait, okay. But this act in other cultures does not mean the same thing. It means you're crazy. So if you do that for somebody, you're insulting me. I'm not insulting you, I'm telling you, you have to be patient, wait. No, you're insulting me, you're doing this. In our Egyptian culture we do this, which means crazy. In other cultures this means wait. So it's the opposite. So you have to know that some of the body languages differ. Some of the gestures mean different things. So, for example, in Korea, when you laugh, this does not mean you're happy. It means that you are angry sometimes, or you are embarrassed. And sometimes when you do that, this does not mean you're happy. It means sometimes that you're embarrassed or you're annoyed. So don't think that if you are giving a message or if you're preaching to someone and then they laugh, okay, I'm doing well. Actually they are angry from you because you don't know that this is their culture. I'll give you an example. There is an elevator outside. There is a common universal language in the best place to communicate with people, which is the elevator. The elevator is the best place to communicate with people without speaking. Do you speak with the people on elevators usually? If you don't know them, I mean, if they are your neighbors, probably you speak with them. But if they are not, then you don't speak with them. But there is a common language. If there are 1 or 2 people in the elevator, usually all of the people lean against the wall. I'm not speaking of this elevator because it's very small. But I'm speaking of that. But even when I went to this elevator with Rami, he entered and he leaned on the wall. I noticed that because he wanted me to he's welcoming me in the elevator actually, and because I cannot access the elevator if he's standing in my way. So if there is 1 or 2 people in the elevator, you go like that, leaning against the wall. If there are 4 people in the elevators, they usually, for people, they tend to occupy a corner to welcome the newcomer. They go to the corners. You see that in the big elevators in the hotels or in the airports. So if you have been into some airports like Frankfurt Airport, you very big elevators, and people used to do that. If there are more than 5 or 6 people, they tend to face the door. But sometimes, and you see that, you don't know if the door is in front of you or behind you, and you see the people doing like that. Where's the door? Because if there are more than 6 people in the elevator, usually most of them, they tend to look at the numbers, I mean with the light on them, and they tend to look at the exit, and they don't know where is the exit. So this is universal communication. You find this everywhere. I don't know why. But other than that, don't consider anything as universal gestures. Don't assume that somebody who is doing that he's saying hello. This in airports means stop. Otherwise the plane is going to enter in the airport. So don't take anything for granted. I have here few papers that I've downloaded from the internet. I can leave it to you. And they speak about the Asian gestures. So the gestures of the people of China, Japan, Korea, Philippines, and Taiwan. And believe me, they do differ from each other. You always assume that all of the Far Eastern people, they do bow like that. When they don't greet to them, they do bow. Well, actually they don't. Some of them don't bow. And even in bowing, they are not similar. As the person in front of you is higher in rank in society, you bow more. So to safeguard against that, not to offend people, you be the greatest bower. So you bow until you touch the earth. So this is one thing. And then I can read for you many examples. This is about the difference between American culture. Like in American culture, they don't touch each other. It's not a touchy society. So you just greet like that with a firm hand. And you look to the person in front of you with a great eye contact. Eye contact is a great mistake in the Far East. You don't look to people like that, like the Americans do. And you don't shake your hands firmly like that. You don't even shake hands. You bow. So that's one thing. You don't tap shoulders. If you tap the shoulders of someone like a sort of affection, they do like that. What do you want? What do you want from me? You don't like that. Even for Americans, they don't hold hands. I mean, people from the same sex, they don't hold hands. In Egypt, you find that. That's well understood in our society. In other societies, it has a negative meaning or another meaning. So you have to respect that. You have to know that some gestures are not welcomed. You have to know about the cultural mishaps, so you don't do that and you don't lose the people in front of you. And you can never know everything. These are few tips that are on the internet, and they won't take more than 10 minutes before going or traveling to Afghanistan, for example. One of the cultural mishaps, for example, is that you have to know about ethnicities. Like in Rwanda, there is the Hutu ethnicity and the Tutsi ethnicity. Maybe you don't know about that, but there is something called like that. So you have to know that, okay, they all have dark colors, they look alike, but they are from different ethnicities, and they have killed each other from 15 years, and 1 million people died. So they don't look like each other that way. One of the prejudices that we used to, all Chinese people look alike. Well, they don't look alike. God didn't create 1 billion people to look alike. This would be nonsense. They don't look alike. You think that, and they are telling that all the Africans and all of the Europeans and all of the Caucasians, they look alike, they all have the same idea. So you don't tell that. So avoid this kind of prejudice. Avoid inflexibility. You're not flexible. This is our way, and you have to abide. This is failure in communication. Failure. Either you play by my rules. Okay, there are things to be compromised, and there are values that should never be compromised. For certain churches who are preaching in Africa, people marry more than one wife. Some churches accepted that. They have compromised on their values. We don't do that. But we can compromise in the way they worship the Lord, the way they communicate with each other, the way they use music. Okay, this is to be compromised. Despair is very important. You have to avoid despair. Jumping to conclusions, as I said before, ambiguity. Like you are speaking with people, you're offering something to them. They don't need it. They don't know how to use it. So don't send an ambiguous message that's not understood. Avoid this, keep it full. Okay, I only have few minutes left to give you the flavor of group presentations. Actually, we train people on group presentations like on 2 days. So I'm not in a way to give you all the group presentations, but That's why I'm going to show you a very short clip, and the clip is by President Obama. And you know that President Obama is a great communicator. Let me give you an example of President Obama's speech in Cairo University just a few months ago. Okay.
The possibilities of religious tolerance and racial equality. I also know that Islam has always been a part of America.
Okay. So this is President Obama. He's giving a speech, and you see some important things that you have to look at. One, this guy is using his body. Isn't he using his body, or is he using his body? There is a gesture like that. This guy is looking in front of him, or right or left. You say. Everywhere. So it's not like that. He's not making eye contact with a specific person like that. Imagine if I sit like that speaking for someone for a few seconds and then the person, because it's embarrassing. So you have to distribute the eye contact between the audience. This is an effective group presentation. Actually, the best thing is to remove this table and then you have free contact, no obstacles with the people you are speaking. Okay, for Father Dawood, this is, because he's a priest, this is acceptable. For me, for example, it would hinder me, because I would like to mingle between people and move between them and look at that and tap on this one's shoulder and smile at this one, say a joke here, smile for that one, and then everybody is following me with his or her eyes, and this is effective. Imagine your most boring Sunday school teacher. What did he do? And then you know what to do in ineffective presentations. And imagine the person who fired you up. How he was you might not remember what this person was saying because you are young and you don't remember what this person was saying, but you remember his eye contact, you remember his body language, you remember his or her smile, you remember that, his spirit, his soul, but you don't remember the words. How could you remember something that happened that many years ago? So I'm going now to lower the voice and continue. Do you hear anything? This will help you concentrate more on what this guy is saying. So what is he doing? He's again looking right and left. Look, 2 seconds right. He's saying the sentence and he's going left. He's using his right hand to emphasize some points. He puts his hand, he uses, because this is important, he uses both hands for something that's cordial. I believe now he's saying something that's from his heart, you know. So body language is very important. You don't sit like the Sphinx and expect people to communicate with you. The tone of your voice should go up and down. I am very happy about that. Yet, I would like to, you see how I play with my voice. I'll give you some more tips that are not important, just to tell you how communication skills are very important. The guy is wearing what kind of ties? What's the color? Okay, it's blue. Never would he wear a tie with drawings or with strips. I would invite you to notice that. Never. Because he doesn't want the attraction to go to the tie. And I'm not wearing a tie to make it easier for me. But he is wearing something that is plain colored. And a dark suit. Always a dark suit. Never another color. Never a brown suit, for example, like myself. Always a dark suit with one colored tie, and then the attraction is on the face. I will test your memory. What kind of ties was George Bush wearing in the first clip? What color? Red, yeah, always. Either red if you're speaking about a crisis. He was speaking about a financial crisis. A blue one when you want to be cordial, and a yellow one if you want to be, practical or something. Never other colors. So it goes to the color of the tie? Yes. Yes. Thank God that our priests were black, only one color. So that the attention doesn't go to anything else. Sometimes when you see TBN channel or whatever kind of channels, you find those preachers and they are wearing multicolored things, and you just go like that to watch it. So you don't wear something that attracts attention, like a Rolex, and you do like that, and everybody is going with your hand. This is not effective presentation skills. So I would invite you to practice presentations. Sunday school teachers have very great opportunities to practice that. But the problem is they don't rate themselves. So you can ask your colleague, I'm having presentation tomorrow, or I'm on a course, and please rate my presentation. You can give them a paper, my voice, my body language, and the kind of practice, the kind of body language that suits your situation, not any kind of body language. So this is the only thing that I can tell about group presentations. You don't put coins in your pockets and then jiggle the coins and play with them. You don't put your hands in your pockets, because this is very offensive for people. You don't put your feet, you cross your legs, because this for some cultures is offensive. Like, however, in America it's accepted. You have to know that in group presentations. To that I come to a conclusion for my presentation. I thank you, and glory to God and His Church. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramez. I'm really impressed with the lecture. You may have 2 questions to Dr. Ramez. You have any questions to Dr. Ramez before the break? Yeah, go.
Yes, open, and for a dialogue to be successful, you have to know something about the person in front of you. Imagine that you have never met this person, which is probably the case for your first contacts in your own evangelism purpose. So you have to open a communication. So how could you know about the person in front of you? You might know about his culture, his country, these things, but you don't know about the person, him or herself. So the only solution you have is to ask open-ended questions, because open-ended questions will give you an insight about the person. As you ask 3 or 4 questions, you might realize that this person is Moldova, that she is a female, that she has a sister who is in Europe. She says that her sister is working and she's sending us money, and she's very happy with that. And imagine, what is her sister doing? So this happens through open-ended questions. As you have sisters, where is she working? In Europe. Does she earn money? Okay, she earns good money. And what about her? Did you visit her before? And so about, and then you with open-ended and closed questions, you come to realize that they're suffering from a great problem. The same case when you're speaking to somebody who's from China, and then the guy gives you an idea that he's from the province, he's not from Beijing, and then his father is a farmer, and then you know an idea about this person, you get it in your head. We do this in the villages. When you go to Minya, for example, you enter the home. How are you doing? What are your children doing in school? Yes, this is dialogue, that you get to collect information. And then what do you think about the church? What do you think about the servants there? And then you get to know if they go to church, if the service level is good, if they're suffering from something, if they do have somebody of a different kind of religion, you know that. So it comes by dialogue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ramez. The homework of this week from Gospel of St. John, Chapter 3 and Chapter 8. Chapter 3, we will follow the discussion between our Lord Jesus Christ and Nicodemus. How did he open the discussion? How he was asking an open-ended questions? How we take the conversation forward? How he closed the communication? So this is all you can pick it up from the conversation of Nicodemus. This is John chapter 3. In John chapter 8, a long conversation between our Lord Jesus Christ and the Jews. It's like 30 verses. So it's a long one, but it's not a sermon, it's not a lecture, you know. It was a dialogue, so you can also pick all the points that Dr. Ramez mentioned from such dialogue. Okay, so you have two examples, one from one-to-one dialogue and the other one is a group discussion or one-to-a-group conversation.